there have been lots of talks about unicorns, and India being the home for over 100 unicorns now, with like just 44 unicorns that we have created in last 1 year alone. To understand this phenomena better, I have a very special guest today with me. Please welcome Amarjit Singh. He is the CEO of India Business Group. Amarjit, welcome to LawWiser.
Thank you very much, Aman.
Let me just straight away get down to my first question. Let's talk about the basics. What is a unicorn?
So the term unicorn is relatively new. It was coined in 2013 by US California-based venture capitalist Aline Lee when referring to rare technology startup businesses. And the specific definition is a private startup business which has a market valuation of $1 billion or more. And so if we look at the global landscape today, there's over 1,000 unicorns globally. So there's not many of them. It's rare to get to that stage. But India, of course, now has the third highest number of unicorns globally based on the monumental milestone achieved in May of this year. And so India ranks third in the global ecosystem of unicorns and startups after the USA and China.
So India actually has almost 10% representation in the unicorn club globally. That means something, but there is always a question, and I'm going to talk more from the skeptical viewers angle, is that startups are achieving unicorn status very, very soon, and we have seen some of the startups which have become unicorn within 1 year. So how would you describe that? What are the things that they do that they become unicorn in within 1 year?
I mean, every unicorn story is obviously unique, and whilst the average global time duration to reach unicorn status is around 6 to 7 years, we have been witnessing rapid growth based on the specific technology subsector business. So how disruptive are they? What is the global or domestic market audience they're tapping? What specific niche or disruptive area or solution have they been able to develop? And frankly, how quick or good have they been, not just to penetrate the marketplace in terms of scaling up, but also to raise funding, because ultimately it's a question of market valuation placed on the business through the lens and assessments of investors globally. So it really depends on the space or the segment within which the business is operating, how robust the business model is, how quickly and rapidly can they scale up in a credible manner to market penetrate and really start to create disruption and innovation based on changing consumer behavior.
And you've talked about valuation, and they're often criticized for the valuation part particularly, and the critics say that it's a bubble. So and this is something which I've been hearing for the last at least 1 decade, but it still goes on and on and on. And I think we are seeing a lot of companies becoming global, becoming big unicorns. So what is your reaction on the valuation part?
I mean, it's a fair view to hold that valuations of unicorns is a very complex process, because of course the whole assessment is based on your market valuation at a certain point in time, not the level of funding you've received or your turnover or your profit. So you've got to look at it from the lenses, optical lenses and mindset of investors who have to conduct assessments on business models. They have to look at financial forecasting of the business to understand what is the growth potential of the business. And ultimately, what these investors will be looking at is is the business going places? Can it achieve high growth and scalability? And of course, they'll be assessing a lot of scenarios. So it's very futuristic in terms of what the assessment is. And therefore, there's a number of metrics and assessments which really entail a very deep dive into the business model, but also the specific solution being provided by the unicorn, whether it's in the space of e-commerce, fintech, edtech, medtech, a broad range of diverse technology areas where we're seeing lots of impact, but also the rise of unicorns, both in India and globally.
So Amarjit, I think, you've been based out of London, you're running India Business Group, you've been actually advising a lot of, big UK, Indian companies, government, you're working very closely with the governments, we have seen India, UK FTA, and there are lots of hopes that are pinned with that FTA. How does that help the growth of unicorns in both India and UK?
Well, I mean, having been involved in the UK-India corridor now for 2 decades, advising a broad range of businesses and organizations on market growth strategies and assessments, my view is that the free trade agreement will be a real game changer for businesses of all sizes and sectors in both countries. And actually, since the negotiations started in January of this year, there's been a lot of rapid and deep progress. So at the moment, we're in the middle of the 5th round of negotiations. When Prime Minister Boris Johnson visited India a few weeks back, both Prime Ministers agreed a fairly ambitious Diwali deadline of an early harvest agreement. So lots of technical teams are working behind the scenes to really make this a reality. But we've got to remember what will be the core objective of the free trade agreement. And inevitably, it will be to remove or reduce barriers, tariff, non-tariff, for producers, for exporters, for investors, for service providers, so as to simplify the flow of cross-border business and investment in both directions. And I think the free trade agreement is already raising awareness of the UK-India business opportunities, but also I believe it will help the startup ecosystems in both countries flourish, expand, and grow in both directions in terms of penetrating new audiences and consumers in both geographies and further afield.
And what are the sectors that you're looking at? Like, for example, you've talked about technology sector. What are the sectors where you think that these unicorns are going to be coming in? I mean,
so again, we've got to look at changing consumer behavior, lifestyles, how society in a post-COVID-19 pandemic world operate, communicate, shop, live, and buy. And specifically in India, given the huge digitalization we've been seeing in public and private sector services and provisions, technology, but also subsectors of technology like e-commerce, fintech, is booming, where I expect there to be significant growth in unicorns, but also businesses tapping new consumers. And also, if we look at neobanks in India, which of course are online banks which operate without any traditional office space or buildings, they're disrupting the traditional banking sector. So it's really areas which are causing disruption and innovation in terms of providing solutions which help ordinary people and consumers work and operate more efficiently.
Okay, so I'm just asking my last question now. What are the things that these the startups should keep in their mind on their way to their journey to become a unicorn? I mean, we've been talking about several things, including the legal part. So, if you could cover some of those things very crisply, that would be, great insight for the viewers.
Certainly, I think there is no magic formula or confirmed definitive recipe for success, but there are certain traits and characteristics that startup businesses and entrepreneurs can reflect upon. And I think, being determined and driven to create that value add proposition is important. Once you've got your business's vision and mission, you really do need a robust business plan, and underpinning any such business plan are obviously practical frameworks. You mentioned law. Well, the legal sector has a hugely significant role in terms of acting as advisors to industry. And so in the case of unicorn startups, they really do help to minimize risks in terms of provisions, compliances, agreements, whether it's kind of private equity, whether you're growing and penetrating new markets. But ultimately, the business will need to be a little different in the sense that, are you creating a first mover advantage to address a particular problem? Do you have the ability to scale up and grow rapidly so you can gain a larger market share? Can you disrupt existing models? For example, as we said, traditional banks, can you come up with a formula? And then ultimately, you will need to be successful in raising funds, private equity. And in order to do that, as well as the credibility of the business, you will need to build relationships with investors, with businesses, and your wider stakeholders to really go the extra mile in building up the valuation of the business.
And I think there is a lot to be explored on unicorns, which we will do later. But thank you so much, Amarjit, for your insights for now. And with this, we wrap up this edition, and we'll be back soon with a lot more insights on unicorn. Stay tuned. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.